And the talk was We Are Family, and I was talking about how the people that we surround ourselves in life, they dictate our future. They will show you where your life is going to go, the people who you choose to place around you. And this week I was thinking, in a certain sense, about the opposite of that. About the negative way that we surround ourselves with people and the negative way that we look at people. And as I was thinking about this, if I'm honest, I found this really challenging for me and really emotional for me. Sometimes when I stand here and I speak, I feel like I'm speaking from a place of strength, where I'm like, I've overcome all of this, I've got this together, and I can come with this history of victories. And other days, I feel like I'm coming more vulnerably, and I'm coming from a place of just sincerity, where I look at these things that I want to share with you today, and I see them echoing through my life time and time again. And something that I often encourage is people to speak up, that this isn't a monologue, this is much more than that. This is a time when we're together and we're asking God what he's saying to us as a community. And so if I say something that you get that's true for you too, like tell us, let us know. Say, yeah, me too. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I get that too. And you can speak up and you can speak out. And when you do that, it encourages me, that I don't feel like I'm just laying out my soul for you on my own and you're here sitting like I'm a show. It looks like a cinema, but we're not being a cinema today.
Yeah.
But it also shows everybody around you as well that we all experience these things in life, that we're united with these experiences, and that they're not alone with things that they might be struggling and going through. So you up for that today? Are you up for being a little bit vocal? Speaking with me. Good. It would have been awkward if you were quiet. We can't change the lighting without a huge amount of difference, so I'm apologising for not being able to give you more light for notes at the moment, but noted, we do want to help you take notes. So, I want to talk about my school. Does anybody else actually like school? Yes, I had an amazing school. My school was epic. I mean, it helped that I was a house captain. We had this house system, and somebody in power made a decision to make me house captain, which was amazing.
Of course you were. It doesn't surprise anyone else.
and the best thing about being house captain was that I got to give out biscuits at break time. And what that really meant was that if you were nice to me, you got nice biscuits, and if I didn't like you, you would get those digestives. And at the end of break, I'd leave break with a pocket full of jammy Dodgers. Like that was the best experience in my school. My school was so good, we did 2 hours of sport every single day. Who would love to do 2 hours of sport every single day? Epic. Every Thursday, as a lesson in school, we did rifle shooting. We got taught how to shoot things in my school. My school was epic. It was absolutely amazing, except for one thing. And his name was Andrew. And for some reason, and I don't know what it is, because to be honest, if you'd have known me when I was a kid, I was awesome. But he didn't see it. And he decided that it was his job to bring me back down to earth. He decided it was his job to point out all of my faults. He decided it was his job to just make my life a living hell. And when I finished at school, he left a stain on my childhood, which genuinely echoed through my life for years and years afterwards. The pain and the hurt from that time. Well, a little while ago, I was on Facebook and a notification popped up. Friend request. Andrew. It is him. And all of those feelings suddenly come back to the surface. And I'm like, okay, so I accept his friend request and I start talking to him. And I'm like thinking, what's happening with him now? Where's your life today? So I said, what are you doing? How are things going? How's your life? And he said, I'm just recovering at the moment. I was like, yes, you are recovering. I was like, maybe you just got dumped. Maybe you just got fired. Maybe you had a horrific accident, your face is scarred and children cry as you walk down the street. That's how life should be going for you, Andrew. I said, I'm so sorry, mate. What are you recovering from? And he said, well, I'm recovering from the Olympic Games. I got a silver medal. And I was like, what? Andrew Haynes? Andrew, the boy who was last to get picked in football. I was the captain of the second 11 at rugby. I was destined for greatness, not Andrew. Andrew, how did this happen? And it was like everything that I had achieved in my life, everything that I'd done suddenly was meaningless. And I felt completely empty and broken, and my stomach twisted. And I think that this is what comparison does to every single one of us. We've all been there, we've all done it. You know, you're there at home, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, eating pizza from 3 days ago, in your pajamas. You've only just got up, you get onto Facebook, and then your friend sticks up a notification. They're 5 years younger than you, and they've just been promoted to heading up a division in their company, earning 20 grand more than you. And you want to be happy for them. And at the same time, if you're honest, there's a part of you that hopes that they do get hit by that bus as they cross the road. It does something really, really nasty inside of us when we compare our lives to other people. I tell you now that comparison is the quickest way to ruin anything good in your life. As soon as comparison comes, joy goes, happiness goes. Satisfaction evaporates. And this is something that we do regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of race or background. You know, kids are doing this. Kids want to have better toys. You know, when you become a teenager, you want the best clothes, or you want the best body. When you grow up and you become an adult, you want the best job, or the best car, or the best house. If you're a hipster, you want the best beard. This is the heart that...
Winning, Ben.
I'm winning. This is the heart that makes us unsatisfied with the relationship that we have and unable to commit ourselves because we're afraid that something better might be around the corner. This is the heart that even though we got that job that we were desperate for, that we worked so hard to get, that leaves us feeling empty and unsatisfied because we're looking at other people's jobs and other people's situations and we're wishing that we had theirs. And I think the heart of this problem is what I want is I want everything that you have plus You know, I don't want to be wise, I want to be wiser. I don't just want to be clever, I want to be cleverer. I don't want to be rich. You meet somebody who's rich and they're always trying to be rich. It's everything that you have, everything that I see around me, I want that plus Except if I'm entirely honest. If I look at my life, what I really want is not even is est. I don't want to be better, I want to be best. I want to be the clever est. I want to be the most significant est. And the trouble is that when we compare our lives to other people, we lose sight of everything good that has been given to us. And what we do is we compare like our deepest insecurities to other people's highlights on Facebook. They're filtered pictures that they're putting out to your world. And you can't help but feel like your life is meaningless, that it doesn't really matter, that it didn't go as you wanted it to. Comparison always costs. And some of us, we do this and we look at other people and we feel insignificant. But if we're honest, there's some of us, we like to play this game because it makes us feel better. You know, at least my life isn't like theirs. At least I'm not like that person, and we feel superior. And the problem is that when we obsess with identifying with our lives with other people, we take our eyes off God, and we stop looking at Him, and we lose joy, we lose gratitude, and we lose family. When you're comparing with all the people around you, you cannot have significant, deep, meaningful relationships. You distance yourself. And I believe that it's impossible to find healing the stuff that's going on in your life when you're constantly comparing. And so I've got a question that I want to ask us today. And it isn't a question that we even get to just ask, it's a question we actually have to live out. And the question is, who or what are you going to let define your worth? In your life today, who or what is it that defines your worth? I'd like to read a story in the Bible, and as I was thinking about this idea of comparison, there's so many stories that come to mind. You know, the Bible is thousands of years old, and yet it speaks so relevantly right into the stuff that we feel every single day. And I thought we could talk about Adam and Eve and how they're in the garden, it was amazing, but then they start thinking about what they didn't have rather than what they did have. Or I thought we could talk about Joseph. And Joseph has these dreams and he turns around to his brothers and says, you know what, I want to be better than you. I'm going to be the best. And how they then throw him into a well and sell him as a slave and how that works out for him. Yeah. Or I thought we could talk about the disciples and how they would go to Jesus and say, hey, Jesus, who's the best? Yeah. Who's going to be the closest to you? Who's your favorite? And Jesus was like, you've completely missed the point. It's not about that. Or in the New Testament, you could go to a couple called Ananias and Sapphira, who are so worried about what everybody else is thinking about them that they create this fake life. And they create this appearance of holiness which isn't real. And it costs them absolutely everything. But the story I chose is one of my favorites. And it's a story of one of my heroes. And it's in the book called Luke chapter 6, which is in the New Testament. And if you can find it, we're going to go to Luke chapter 6, verse 36. And in this story, Jesus is at a dinner party. He's been invited to dinner with this group of Pharisees. Pharisees were, in the time of Jesus, they were the religious guys. They would have trained for years and years at school. They would have learned the whole of the Old Testament, the Bible, the Jewish Bible, off by heart. They would have known everything. They would have studied and practiced in how to live the ultimate moral life. They were all about being the best and living the best way. And they've invited Jesus to this dinner party. And these dinner parties would have been just for men. To be a Pharisee, you had to be a man. In fact, Pharisees believed that to even teach women scriptures was like wasting your breath. Because why would God want to speak to a woman? They were really, really judgmental. They were really, really sexist. And they live in this time where it was all about the guys. And so this dinner party was this absolute guys club. And they would have been having these in-depth, theological, sophisticated conversations. So Jesus is in the middle of one of these dinner parties when all of a sudden somebody walks into the room. And I don't think that they probably would have noticed this person first. I imagine that there was a smell which came into the room, that they all noticed it and they smelt this smell of perfume. And then as this woman walks into this room of self-righteous, judgmental men, I imagine every single face, every single eye in the room turning and looking at this woman who was not welcome, who was not wanted, who was not invited, as she walks into this room of important, outwardly well-to-do men. And the Bible tells us, it says that she was a sinful woman. And there's lots of conversation about what it means that she was a sinful woman. But what most commentators agree is that she was probably a prostitute. She was probably a woman who sold her body, who sold herself to men. And so as these men who have devoted their whole lives to being righteous and morally upstanding, and they see this prostitute walk into the room, the judgment would have been thick. Everyone would have felt it. And she beelines Jesus, and she just focuses her eyes entirely and directly on Jesus. And she walks up to Jesus, and she gets down on her knees, and she begins to cry. And these tears are pouring out of her face, and snot is coming out of her nose. It's not pretty crying, this is ugly crying that we're seeing here. And she starts to wash Jesus' feet with her tears. And then she gets her hair that she's been so careful looking after, her hair that she loves. And she takes her hair and she uses her hair to clean the mud, the muck, and the manure of Jesus' feet. And she's kissing his feet. And she's bawling. And it is so awkward. It is so inappropriate. This is absolutely the wrong place to be doing this. At a dinner party with Pharisees. And yet she is there just pouring her life. And it's so intimate. And everyone around would have been looking at this prostitute kissing Jesus' feet intimately in this room. And judging them both. And Jesus turns around to Simon, the man whose house it was. And it's like he realizes what they're all thinking without them saying a word. He can feel the judgment in that room as they compare themselves. And he says in verse 40, Luke 6 verse 40, he says, "Simon, I've something to tell you." "Tell me, teacher," Simon said. "Two people owe money to a certain money lender. One of them owed 500 denarii and the other 50. So 500 denarii, that's like 2 years' wages, which for some of you is like £7,000 or £8,000. And he said one person owed him 500 denarii, the other 50. Neither of them had any money to pay him back, so he forgave the debts of both. Now which would love him more?" Simon replied, "I suppose the one who had the biggest debt." "You've judged correctly," Jesus said. So he turned to the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I came into your house and you didn't give me any water for my feet. But she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair." In this day, in this age, in this culture, when you went into somebody's house, even into the most poor person's house, they would come and they would wash your feet because you would walk with sandals everywhere. And so it was basic hospitality, it was basic human decency to wash somebody's feet. And Jesus is saying, you didn't even wash my feet. It's like this group of teachers were actually slighting Jesus in this room. They were judging Jesus even this whole time. He said, "But this woman, she washed them and wiped them with her hair. You didn't give me a kiss." Again, that was the standard greeting. "And yet she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little." So Jesus is turning around to these teachers, these superior teachers, and he says, "You think you're the teachers, you know it all, and yet this woman who you look down on, who you judge for her life, she's the teacher here today. She's the one who is showing the way to live. She is the one who is showing the true path. She is the one who is living the way that I would want her to live." And he says, "Therefore go and sin no more." She lived the right path because her focus was solely on Jesus. I, a few years ago, more than a few years ago actually, decided I was going to run a half marathon. And I would train every single day, and I would do all these different runs. And Saturday was my long run day, where I would try to stretch my endurance by running longer and longer times. And I would normally run somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours on a Saturday. And it was really painful and it was hard, but I kind of somehow enjoyed the pain, I think. I don't know why, it's a bit weird. But one Saturday, I've been running for about 95 minutes and I'm on my way home. And as I turn a corner, I see another guy running just behind me. And within a couple of minutes, he is now running alongside me. And as I look and turn to him, I realize that he is about 40 years older than me. And straight away, like pretty much I imagine every single guy here would have been, I realized there was no way he could overtake me. That was not going to happen today. So I picked my pace up. I started running a little bit faster. And you know what? He picked his pace up too. And I was like, okay, so I'm going faster and faster. My heart starts beating, my lungs are raw. And I am just absolutely dying. And I see a turning coming up on the right. And I know I can't let him beat me. And I think if I can just get to that turning, I can stop. I can get out of this with pride. And so I'm running as fast as I can now. I've been running all of this time. And I get to the turning and I run around the corner. And I collapse on the floor. And for days and days and days, I was in agony. And you know, I don't know where he was at in his race. I don't know if he'd been running for 5 minutes. I don't know who he was. I don't know if he was an Olympian who's trained for years and he just looks older than me, but actually he is epic. But what I did realize was that when you run someone else's race, it's painful. Because he was at a different time and a different stage than I was. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Run the race that has been set out before you with perseverance." Paul is saying, run your race. Don't run other people's races. Don't run the races of the people around you. You run your race. Do you know, you're not going to be judged for somebody else's situation. You're not going to be judged by God based on a calling he has given to somebody else. You're not going to be judged by God by a life that he has given somebody else. You need to run your race. So often we spend times and we look at other people and we're like, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if we had that? Wouldn't it be amazing if I had more money? Wouldn't it be amazing if I had that opportunity? Wouldn't it be amazing if all of this happened this way? And what we do is our focus was removed from our race and we start looking at other people's races. And the question I want to ask you today is what is your race? What is it that God has put in your life? You see, the word stewardship means looking after what God has given to you. You're not responsible for what God has given to other people. You're not responsible for other people's journeys. Stewardship is saying, I'm going to use what God has given me, what he has placed in my life, and I'm going to do the best that I can with that.
Yeah.
And I believe that stewardship is what leads us to blessing. That stewardship is what honors God. Yeah. That when you give your life to what he has given you, he pours out contentment and blessing and joy. Yeah. And when you make your joy about somebody else, it's a moving target and it will constantly be moving. And you will never find it. You need to run your race. How much time in your life have you wasted running someone else's race? And I think somewhere in our hearts it's because we want to be important, you know. I want to be significant, but I want to tell you that God does not call you to be important. He calls you to be faithful. And when you're faithful with what he has given you, you'll do important things that last for eternity. You know, God hasn't called you to be perfect. He's calling you to be pure. Stop focusing on everybody else around you. Focus on your race. Run your race. We live in a culture and a time which I think is perfectionistic. You know, we want to be the best at everything. I expect my life to be the best. I expect to have the best health. I expect to have the best family. I expect to have the best education, the best job. I expect to be the best at everything I do. I want to be the hero. And it confuses us when our life does not go like that. And I want you to know today that it's okay to just be okay. It's okay to be average at stuff. You don't have to smash everything in your life. It's okay to not be an incredible singer. It's okay to not be an incredible public speaker. It's okay to have an average home. It's okay to be okay. In fact, I want to go further than that. I need you to know today, and maybe you're here today just to hear this, that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay if your life is falling apart. It's okay if everything has not gone how you wanted to. It's okay to not be okay. You see, the problem is when we compare our lives to everybody else, we feel like we're insignificant. We feel like we're not good enough. And what we do is we start putting up filters. And we start hiding our lives. And we start covering up. And what happens when you put a filter on your life is you lose authenticity. And without authenticity, intimacy is impossible. And so you lose your friends. You lose your families and you think you're hiding it, but you're not. People see. And then you see them see and you distance yourself. And you find yourself alone. Because you don't realize that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be where you want to be. This lady, this woman whose name we don't even know, she focuses on Jesus. And she focuses her life on him. And you know there's two versions of my life. There's the one that I wish I had, and there's the one that I do have. There's the Ben that I would like to be, and then there's the Ben who I am. And do you know what the Bible tells us? It doesn't say when you are perfect, there's strength. It doesn't say in your strength, there is strength. It says in your weakness, there's strength. Why? Why is there strength in weakness? There's strength in weakness because we realize that we don't have to be okay. We don't have to do it all ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to have a maximized life. But that it's Jesus. Yep. It's Jesus who brings the strength. It's Jesus who brings the breakthrough. Yeah. It's Jesus who brings the power. And what we do when we filter our lives, when we hide our lives, we also hide the healing. And all the people who are around your life, who God wants to speak through you into, don't even see the power that he has in your world. Because you hid. What if the people around your life need you to show the authenticity of who you are? so that they can then celebrate with you in your breakthrough and your victory?
Yeah.
What if your trial is actually going to be somebody else's triumph? What if your test can become somebody else's testimony? How they have seen this in you and they've said, that makes no sense in my life. There must be something greater happening here, because that is not an ordinary journey. And what I found is when I'm open, when I'm honest, when I take down these filters, people come to me, and do you know what they say? They say, me too. I've had that too. I've experienced that too. I thought I was alone in this. I thought I was the only one who struggled with this stuff. And now I found out that you did too.
Yeah.
And that I'm not alone. The moment we run our own race and we stop being focused on everybody else, we actually find community. It's okay to not be okay. You don't need to judge your life on everybody around you. What you need to do is you need to judge your life on Jesus. This woman, for me, she's a hero. I can't imagine the courage it took for her to go into that room. I can't imagine how brave you had to be to stand in front of all of those men and be that authentic and to be that real. And do you know what Jesus says to her? How it is that she can do this. Do you know what he says? In verse 47, he tells you, he says, the reason she can walk this bravely, the reason why she can be bold, the reason she's running her own race and she's not worried about any of you is this. Her great love has shown this. I tell you, her sins have been forgiven as her great love has shown. He doesn't say, I love her now that she has done this. He doesn't say, because she's been bold, because she's been brave, she is loved. What he says is actually, she is loved. And because she knows the love of God for her life, she then discovers that she doesn't have to please people.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to be comparing her life to everybody around her, because it's not about that. She knows that she is loved. I want to tell you today that if you compare your life to everybody else, and if your life is 1 minute happy and the next minute you see somebody and it's like your joy is gone, then you are building the foundation of your life on all the wrong things. You find stability and joy not by your environments, not by the outside situations, but because you focus on Jesus. The problem with comparison is we're trying to look at external events to fix something which is an internal problem. Whereas instead we need to focus our eyes on Jesus. And when you do focus your eyes on Jesus, you discover, number one, you discover that you are fully accepted. You are already accepted. In Titus 3 verse 7 it says, Jesus has made us accepted to God. You know, we spend so much time in our lives trying to earn acceptance from loved ones, from friends, from family, from strangers, from people around us. You need to know that Jesus accepts you as you are today.
Yeah.
You are already accepted. The second thing we discover is that you are unconditionally loved. God does not say, I will love you if. I will love you when. He says, I love you. Full stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how messy your life has been. It doesn't matter whether you think you're superior or inferior. It doesn't matter the walk that you've had. You need to know that God loves you as you are. God loves you as you are. He loves you too much to leave you as you are. But he loves you unconditionally. And the reason he loves you unconditionally is because he doesn't love you based on you and your actions and your events. He loves you because he is love.
Yeah.
And that is the nature of God. He has loved you. He will always love you. When you focus your life on Jesus, you realize that you're completely forgiven. Every mistake, every mess up, every hurt, every habit, every hang up, every time that you hoped for so much more for your life and you fell under, the times when you made it all about you, you're forgiven. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter where you've been. You need to know you are completely forgiven. It doesn't matter that other people will look and they'll judge you. When you follow Jesus, he tells us people are going to look and they are going to judge you. But you need to know that God looks at you. He says, this is my child. And you're forgiven. I love that song that we sung earlier. The reckless love of God. You know, we don't deserve it. It doesn't matter what we've done. It doesn't matter where we've been. God's love is reckless. It's reckless because it's not even dependent on us. And I want you to know today that you are not defined by other people's victories. Your life is not defined by other people's timelines. Your life is not defined by your mistakes. Do you know what? A mistake is an event, it's not an identity. Your life is defined by Jesus. The only way we get this foundation is through Jesus. I'd like to just ask everybody if you would please stand with me. And I want to ask you today, what is God saying to you? What is He saying to your life? Where in your life have you've been comparing yourself and creating timelines and pressures that aren't even for you, that aren't for your journey? Where in your life have you been looking at other people and judging them, and focused on their run and their stuff? And that's not your race. Where in your life have you been placing filters? Because you just don't think that people will get it. You don't think people will understand. I'm going to tell you, Jesus understands. Jesus gets it. What is God saying to you today? You know, the reason we can talk like this about Jesus is because of our encounter that almost every single one of us have had. That moment when He came into our lives and He changed everything. And the more of our lives that we find ourselves giving to Him, we just see more and more breakthrough, more and more freedom, more and more security, more and more love, more and more gratitude, more and more blessing. And if you're here today and you don't know Jesus, that you can't say, I know this Savior, I know Him as a friend, I know Him as my God, I've experienced that forgiveness, I've experienced that love, I've experienced that acceptance. I want to say today could be a day for you to discover that for the first time. The Bible in Romans 10:10 says that if we proclaim with our mouths and we believe with our hearts, then we're saved. And it means we're saved from having to have unrealistic expectations. It means we're saved from the sins that we've had which destroy us and which ruin us. It means we're not just saved for eternity, but we're saved for life today. That we can live today. Jesus says, I came that you'd have life and you'd have life for the full today. And I want to ask you, if you don't know Jesus, why not make today the day when you say, I'm going to throw myself into your arms and trust in your reckless life. You know, God left the 99 for you. He comes away from everybody else for you. He pursues you first. You might think that you've got to do all this stuff to come to Him, but you don't. He's already there waiting for you. So I'm just going to ask everyone to close their eyes and bow their heads. And I'm going to count to 3. And if after 3 you're here today and you're thinking, I want to make a decision to follow Jesus, I'm going to just ask you to raise your hand wherever you are. If you're online, you can do this as well. Just type me too into the Facebook page. So 1, God already loves you. He knows you intimately. He knows everything about your life. 2, He sent Jesus to die for you so that you can be accepted, so that you can be loved unconditionally, so that you can find that peace and that satisfaction and that life. 3, if you want to make a decision, He says all you have to do is say me too, and you can choose to follow Him. And if you want to do that today, wherever you are, just raise your hand with me or type me too and say, I want to follow Jesus. thank you that you don't leave us behind. When our lives are hard, you don't just let us go, but that you pursue us, that you follow us. Lord, I want to thank you that there's no shadow that will hide us, that there's no mountain you won't climb to bring us back because of your love.